Hi, hello and welcome back to Merakis method. Today on Gold Making for Casuals we are going to be looking at TradeSkillMaster operations. Now, depending how we go, I might have to divide this one into two parts as well, but we'll see how we get on. And also, I know in the last one or two of these, I have been in Azure Span, and I do not spend all of my time in Azure Span as much as it must look like I do. I'm just waiting on feasts to farm Tuskar reps. But I do love them a lot, so there's that. Alright, so we're going to open up our TSM. As I said last time, I have it plugged up here on my bazooka bar. So open up TSM, and we're going to go into operations today. We're going to look at these. There is a group, there's a section here down your left hand side, down your menu here. You've got operations for different things. Now, before we get into this, let's just break down what an operation is. An operation is an instruction. That's essentially what we're working with. We're setting the instructions. We've made a whole bunch of groups last week, or last time we were here. We made our groups, so we have our different like bags of items, all of our different bags of items. They're all separated out, but now we need to tell the add-on, tell TSM what to do with all of those groups. So these are the instructions, and now there's instructions for different things as well. So this first one is your auctioning operation. So this is instructions on how to sell those things on the auction house. The next one is crafting operations. So like we said, we made professions groups. So you're going to make an operation that's going to allow TSM to basically do your crafting for you, and work out what materials you need and things like that. So that's included in your crafting operations. If you have a bank alt character, you might want to set up mailing operations so that all of your alts, when they go to a mailbox, they can automatically send all the things in those groups to the character that's going to be selling them. Okay, so we'll talk about that a different day. Mailing operations I'm going to talk about in the mailing episode itself, because I feel like that's probably going to make this episode a little bit shorter and help make that episode make a bit more sense. So we're not going to talk about mailing operations today. Likewise with warehousing operations, we're not going to talk about those today. And the next one is shopping operations. So you're buying things on the auction house. Either you're buying materials to craft with, or perhaps you're buying things to flip. Either way, you've got some operations set up to buy items on the auction house. So those instructions are the shopping instructions telling you what to buy those things for. Sniper operations are for your running sniper. Now sniper again is also going to be its own episode, so we'll look at that when we look at the sniper function. And vendoring here is all your operations to do with vendors, if you're buying things from vendors and the likes of that. Very good for restocking things like threads and inks and dyes and stuff. So to get started, let's go into auctioning operations first. Now this is going to be your bread and butter. This is going to be the main thing that most people are using TSM for, and the thing that's going to be most useful for them when they're using it. Okay, so in your auctioning operations, at the top here, you can see that we have 26 different auctioning operations in my profile. You've got the most groups. The one that is attached to most groups is one I've called crafted gear, and the one that's attached to least groups is a Darkmoon Fair tokens one, because there's only one. That's a very specific operation to that group. And then the group with the most items is transmog, and the one with the least items is tongues, because it literally only applies to the elixir of tongues item. That's it. So just some information if it's any useful to you, but it's nice to have it there. And then you can create a new one up here too, so you can create a new operation up here in the top corner, and down here it lists all the operations that I have, all the auctioning operations that I have, how many groups are attached to those operations, and how many items are in those groups using those operations. So that's basically your little information database. If you click on one of these operations, so for example here I've got collectibles, I can delete it down here. I've also got a select all and a clear all. Okay, so if you want to delete one, you can delete one down here. If you want to create a new one, you can create a new one up here. And we're not going to look at these because these are specific to my profile, and we're not looking at that right now. Remember I said last time that I'm trying to teach you how these work. so that even if you're using somebody else's profile, you'll be, if something breaks or something the game gets updated and the profile doesn't, you'll be able to go in and modify it to fix it, to make it work for you. You can't go in and modify it if you don't know how it works in the first place. So we're going to go into create new. Okay, and you get 3 tabs here. You get details, posting, and cancelling. You can rename it at the top. You click rename, you can name it whatever you want. So we're going to name this one testing operation. Okay, make sure you click enter or it doesn't save. Now in the first one, in your details here, you've got general options. So this is your general settings. Ignore auctions by duration. So what this means is, for example, you're making this for your transmog group, say. It's going to scan the auction house, it's going to look at all the transmog things posted there, and it's going to try and work out what price it should add onto your item, what price you should be posting for. Now, for example, say you are posting an item that's worth 5,000 gold. So you're posting an item worth 5,000 gold, but somebody has it up there for 2,000 gold, and you would rather not sell it for that. But somebody has it up there. Say a bunch of people have it up for 5,000 gold as normal. That's what the item's worth. It's worth 5,000. Loads of people have it up for 5,000, but one person has it up for 2,000. But their auction is about to expire. They've only got 30 minutes left, say, on their auction. Their auction's about to expire. So there's no point in you posting yours to undercut their 2,000 when their auction is going to expire in 30 minutes anyway, and you're going to be then, when you could be posting yours to undercut the 5,000. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. You'd basically be hamstringing yourself. So this allows you to ignore auctions that are about to expire. So it won't generate your price for your item based on auctions that are about to expire. And you can tell it when you think that bracket is. Like I said, short is less than 30 minutes. So if it's going to expire literally in the next 30 minutes, it's not going to base your price on that item. Medium is between 30 minutes and 2 hours. So you think if it's something you're going to have on the auction house for 48 hours, you might not want it to look at stuff that's going to expire in the next 2. Or long is between 2 hours and 12 hours. So again, that's entirely up to you. You set that where you think is reasonable, depending on the item. If it's something that moves fast and is replaced fast, like flasks, you probably don't want it to be ignoring the big ones. 30 minutes is probably the only, but if it's like transmog that might be on there for the full 2 days without being moved, you might want to ignore things that are going to expire in a longer time frame. Again, entirely up to you and your realm. Slower realms, lower pop realms move slower, higher pop realms move faster. You want to take into account for that as well. Management options. So this is, you can ignore this operation on certain characters or realms. I've never used this, but it could be, I guess, in certain situations useful. So if you're making an operation for, you're on your horde character, you're on, say, a roleplay realm, and you're making operations for transmog, but your main character and your main auctioning setup is on, say, a normal PvE realm. So you want your PvE realm to ignore the transmog group that you have set up, just so that you can sell transmogs on a roleplay realm where they sell for a bit more, right? So you want to ignore the transmogs on your PvE realm. So you basically just go into this and you select the realm and faction that you want to ignore that operation on, or on the certain characters that you want to ignore that operation on. I've never found it useful, but I imagine in some very specific cases it could be useful, and if it is for you, that's where it is. And then you have group management. If you've made your operation, if you want to add a new group to your operation, or if you want to add a first group to your operation, this is where you can do it. So you have all your groups set up here, and you just find the one that you want to add this operation to and select group. Very simple. Obviously you can be in the group and add the operation from the group. So again, you can be in the operation and add the group from the operation. It works both ways, and it'll sort itself out there. That's all that's in details. Okay, so now we're going to go on to posting. This is the meat of the actual operation. This is where the actual work gets done. This is where you input those instructions that you want it to follow. And the first one is your posting options. Auction duration is fairly straightforward. It means how long is this going to be on the auction house. Like we mentioned, if it's something like flasks, if you're making an alchemy operation, you probably want that to be shorter because they're fast moving. You don't want to be paying the deposit for 48 hours when those are going to sell probably within 4, you know? So you probably want things that are moving faster on a shorter one so that you're not paying more than you need to in posting fees. But if it's something that could be on the auction house for a long time, you can put it up. It's personal preference. I don't reset my auctions every single day. So I have mine on the longest. I don't mind soaking up the extra bit of fees. It's up to you. If you want to cut down that overhead, you absolutely can. That's where you do it. Post cap means how many is it going to post. If you're talking transmogs, for example, say you have managed to collect up, you got a really good deal. Someone was like dumping a bunch of hats really, really cheap, and you picked up a bunch of them. So you have like 20 of them in your bank now, and you know they're going to sell for more than you bought them for. But if you put 20 of them on the auction house at once, they're not going to sell, and you're just wasting your deposits. You only want to sell a couple at a time. So basically this is your post cap. You want this to be like 1 or 2 for things like transmogs. You probably want this to be a lot higher for things like flasks. If you're only selling 5 flasks, you're kind of doing yourself short. You probably want this to be like 500 or something for flasks if you've got enough of materials to making them in that kind of bulk, and etc. So depending on what your operation is for, you want to change this. If your operation is for something that's going to be on the auction house for a long time, make this lower. If your operation is for something that's going to be moving fast, make this higher, because you're probably going to want to be posting more of them. Otherwise, you're just going to have to restock your auction house even more frequently. Amount to keep in bags, again, sort of applies to transmog things or to flasks perhaps. If there's a particular flask that's your flask and you want to keep a certain amount of it in your bags, what you could do is if you made an alchemy operation, so you made your alchemy operation that was going to sell your flasks, duplicate that operation, which I'll show you how to do in a minute, duplicate that operation and then make one of them and make this one that keeps 20 of them in your bags. I don't know how many flasks you keep in your bags. I don't keep enough in my bags. But you could say here, keep 5 in your bags, and that will keep 5 of that item in your bags, and then you apply that slightly altered version of the operation to your own flasks. So put your own flasks into their own subgroup and apply that slightly altered version of the group to that, and then it'll keep some of those flasks and sell the rest as usual. So that's how you'd get around that, because quite often I find, not with flasks but with RP gear, I would be selling my before they made it transmogable, I would be selling my grey jumper that my character wears quite often. So I had to put it into a separate group and make a slightly altered operation that would allow me to keep one of them in my bag so I could keep my own. Same with trade goods like blacksmith hammers and things. I would sell my own blacksmith hammers and arcanite spanners all the time until I put them into a separate group and allowed myself to keep some in my bags. Okay, don't post after this many expires. Things like transmogs you might want to use this for. If you don't want to continue to try and sell something after it has expired, say 30 times, then you can put that in there, and as soon as it has expired that many times, it'll give you a little message in your chat box saying we're not going to post this because it's expired too many times, and you know then to like disenchant that item or just deal with it in a different way. So that is your posting operations. We're going to collapse those down now. The next part is your posting price. So this is basically the price it's going to set your items up for. Now there's many ways of doing this. Many ways of doing this. I'm going to talk you through what these things are first, and then we'll look at those. Setting a bid percentage of buyout, that is not important anymore. That used to be important before the auction house update. Now it's not so much. It's kind of the first in, first out system. So this is not really very valuable anymore. So I would honestly just don't even pay attention to that. Undercut amount, again, not important anymore because you don't get listed separately anymore. You all get listed together anyway. So with the new system, I wouldn't worry about undercutting either. And then this is the really important part of your auctioning operations is these 3 here. Minimum price, maximum price, normal price, and the 2 extra options in the middle. Now, You can do these several different ways. You can make these super, super simple. Let me just copy this out. You can put in here a flat gold value. So your minimum price, depending on what we said we were going to make this for transmogs, didn't we? This group was for transmogs. So 500 gold. I don't want to sell anything in this group for less than 500 gold. Flat fee. Yeah? And you can do it that way. You can then set your normal price. Say your normal price wants to be 5,000 gold and your maximum price wants to be 50,000 gold. You can do it flat gold fees, flat gold brackets like that. That does require you to know your market a little bit. And it's kind of a bit limited in terms of if things alter, if the market changes, you kind of get stuck. You might have to go in and edit these quite a bit and things like that. But you can make this more complicated if you want. So you could, for example, say your minimum price is, now we're making this for transmog, so minimum price could be min bracket DB market, comma 500 gold bracket. Now what we're doing is we're looking at the smallest, that's your minimum there, so it's looking at the smallest of the DB market value or 500 gold. Yeah, but because this is our minimum price, maybe we want it not to be looking at the normal market value price. Maybe we want to be looking at how low we're willing to go. So maybe we want to be looking at 80% of that DB market price. So 80% of its normal price, which is like 20% discount, or 500 gold. And it's going to look at the smaller one of those and it's going to post it for that. You could also make this maximum. So it's going to look at the bigger one. It's going to look at which of those is worth more. And that's going to be your minimum price. Now, obviously, for a minimum price, you probably want minimum. Okay? So 80% of its normal market value or 500 gold. So you can get more complicated with this. You can add in 80% DB, which stands for database, historical. Okay, so that is now looking at the historical price of that item. It's going to go back even further and it's going to say, well, what is the value of this item for the past several months and what's 80% of that? And it's again still looking for the minimum of these three inputs for you here. Okay, and you can do the same then for your normal. So you can copy that over to your normal and you can say for normal we want the maximum, because it's only going to be using your normal price. It's only going to be using your normal price if there's nothing else on the auction house the same as what you're posting. So you might as well play into it and go 120% of DB market, 120% of the historical maybe, and then your flat gold fee if you want to have a fail safe in there as well. And then for your maximum, maybe you want to go 300% of DB market, 500% of DB market, wherever you think a rational, like if the item is worth 4 gold, 500% is still not an awful lot, so you might want to be careful with that. If the item's worth 5,000 gold, 500% is worth what, 50,000 gold, so it depends where you want to put that, but you can bump it up to your maximum price and then that'll be what it's looking for if things are really, really extortionately priced. The reason you have a maximum price, you're possibly thinking, why would you even put a maximum price on? Surely you just undercut whoever's the highest seller, no matter what they're selling it for. Not quite. Because if someone's selling, for example, parchment paper, they're selling a piece of parchment paper for 50,000 gold, it's not going to sell. It's not going to sell. So there's no point in you posting your parchment paper for 50,000 gold. You're just wasting your deposit. So what you need to do is you need to set a maximum value for those things. That's what your maximum value does. It caps it out so that you don't start posting your things on the auction house for ludicrous prices that it's never going to sell at. So you need to find out what's reasonable depending on the items that you're making your operation for. What's a reasonable maximum price? And now there's a bunch more custom sources. These here things, DB market, DB historical, these are called price sources. We're going to look at those in a minute because there's more than just these two. I'm just trying to explain this to you and try and keep it in a way that it makes sense. So you can use your DB market, which is just your market average, your DB historical, which is your historical average, and there is more options that you can use in there, and we'll look at those in a moment, okay? But that's essentially how you do that. And these other two things in here is when it's below the minimum. So when there's items posted on the auction house below your minimum price, do you want it to not post your items, to post your items at your chosen minimum price, to post them at your maximum price, your normal price, or to ignore any auctions that are below your minimum? So you get to decide what you're doing there. And the same for when things are above your maximum. Are you going to post, don't post them at your normal, minimum, or maximum? So you decide, depending on your group that you're making your operation for, what is going to be the most suitable for you to do there. Okay? And that is your posting prices. Now we're going to come back to those sources in a second. First of all, we're going to go, no we're not, we're going to go back to those sources right now. Okay, so for these price sources, if you want to know the full list of the price sources you can make, you have to check it on their website. I'm just going to show you that here now. I'm going to link this page with all these price sources in the description. So this link to this page will be down below if you want to check this out. But you've got different sources here that you can use, and Gumdrops has written this whole article that explains what they all do as well. So you've got your TSM accounting. So you've got your average buy. So that's the price that you buy this for. So if it's something that you normally buy, that'll tell you how much you buy it for. So if it's something, for example, if we're trying to sell transmog, we want to sell this for, say, 120% average buy. So that's one we could put in there as well. So we're going to copy that. I'm going to go in here before our 500 and we're going to go 120% average buy, because we don't want to be selling it for less than we bought it for. We want to be selling it for at least 20% more than we bought it for. So if you're flipping things, that could be important. Remember to put in a comma, and again, if you saw that, if you have something wrong in your string, it's going to go red. So you'll know that something's wrong, you'll know it's not working, and you'll know to fix that before you carry on. Okay, so where's our sheet again? There we go. So we put in our average buy. You can put in your average sell, your max buy, so the highest that you buy that for. If you want to put that in as a fail-safe, so you absolutely want to make sure you're not selling it for less. Smart average buy again, the smart average buy price. TSM crafting is just the crafting cost. So if it was a crafted item, if you're making a group to sell your tailoring items, for example, you're going to want to sell it for more than you spent making it. Yeah. So you're probably going to want 120% crafting or 120% mat price, which is the cost of your crafting materials. If, for example, you've made a group for buying things from vendors and reselling those, we do quite a bit of that in this channel, you probably want to put in your vendor buy price here. So you want to make sure that even your minimum price is above the vendor buy price. So it's always going to be selling for a profit for you, counting into the fact of what you paid for it. And then TSM operations. This is introducing the new one, so I haven't used these yet actually, because these are new to me. They've just introduced this recently in 4.10, but this explains what those are if you want to look at those. If you want to look at those and you want to get into the more complicated side of things, that's where it is there, and Gumdrops has explained it. I don't use them, so I'm not going to even try and explain them. Your TSM auction database realm, so this is the DB that we were talking about. So you've got your DB min buyout, so that's the normal min buyout. Your DB market is your market value, and your DB historical is your historical price. So that explains to those. The DB market is a 14-day average. The DB historical is a 60-day average. So that's why I put both of those in, because it helps give you a more rounded idea of the actual cost of that item. And then you can do the regional one. So if you want to go above your realm, this is your realm and this is your region. This is going to be useful now if you're doing things like consumables that are now region wide. So you're going to want to count these region values into your into the operations for the groups that are attached to those consumables. I still need to fix this on mine. Direly behind. Don't judge me. I need to put these DB regional market average and regional historical into my alchemy groups, etc., etc. But that's where it is. I'll link this below so you can take a look at those prices yourself, and you can decide which ones you think are going to be useful. For example, if you're selling transmogs, there's no point putting a crafting price in here, because unless you're selling crafted transmogs as well, obviously. But if you're purely selling BOE drops, green BOE drops, there's no point putting crafting into your minimum price as one of your sources, because they're not crafted, so it's irrelevant. So you need to think about the items that you're selling and which price sources are going to be useful for you in putting those in there. Okay, so that's how you do that. If you have any questions about that, drop them into the comments below or jump into Discord. I'm normally around most of the time, so you can give me a shout in Discord if you're having some trouble. And I'm not a genius at this, but I will do my best to help you work it out. And the next thing we're going to look at is our cancelling operations here. So your cancelling operations, if you're running a cancel scan, I don't, but if you're doing a cancel scan, this is basically your details for that. So you're going to cancel things that have been undercut. Yes, obviously that's the whole point of a cancel scan. And are you going to cancel to repost higher? Most people think that a cancel scan is about cancelling items that have been undercut, and it is, but sometimes people will have posted items higher than yours, and you can repost higher and still undercut them. So you can still be the cheapest price, but you can repost at a lot higher than what you're at. So both of those are going to make you more money. So I click both of them, yes. And the repost threshold is if it's going to be a case of you're only making 1 gold, do you really want to bother cancelling the auction and reposting the auction, including the posting fees for a sake of 1 gold? You probably want that to be a little bit more worth your while. 10, 100, depends on yourself what you think is worth it to cancel and repost those auctions, etc. But you can set those up as well. And that is crafting operations. There is, even if you're starting with a completely new TSM, you'll always have a default one, and you can take a look at what they've added in for that as well, and see if you can decipher this and make it make sense. And that might help you get a grip of what they're doing. But I generally don't use this for an awful lot of things anyway. But that is it for auctioning operations, and we're going to leave the rest for another time. So I will see you again next time. And like I said, if you have any questions or any other queries, drop them in below or catch up with us on socials, and we will do our best to help you. Until then, have a wonderful, wonderful week. Bye.